My name is Margaret, and the day I packed my children's belongings into the back of the car, I knew I was leaving more than a house. I was leaving the illusion that family loyalty is unconditional. That drive wasn't an escape, it was a declaration. Blood ties mean little when respect and dignity are absent. If you've ever had to choose between protecting your children and staying loyal to a family that doesn't value you, subscribe. You're not alone. 2 years earlier, I never imagined myself here. My 12-year marriage to David had ended, exposing cracks I'd spent years pretending weren't there. On the outside, we were perfect. Suburban house, tidy lawn, twins Jack and Emma, a comfortable routine. But behind closed doors, silence stretched wider every year. Resentment grew in shadows, and his indifference never bridged the gap. After the divorce, my life became a scramble. David's income was gone, leaving me with minimal alimony and custody struggles. I worked longer shifts at the hospital, scraping together rent and groceries, while trying to hold our lives together. My parents, Martha and Richard, offered temporary support, and I accepted. I wanted to believe in their love, not obligation. I'd always been the responsible one, the daughter who followed the rules, earned her degrees, and shouldered every challenge. My younger brother, Stephen, had always been different. Reckless but adored, failing in charming ways while my achievements were expected. He dropped out of college and thrived in a cushioned tech startup. I earned my nursing degree through sleepless nights and multiple jobs, still yearning for parental approval. Moving back in wasn't easy, but I had Jack and Emma. Jack with his sketchbooks and stones, and Emma, with her fierce sense of fairness and a jump rope always snapping against the pavement, were my anchors. First it worked. My parents gave the twins a shared bedroom. I took the guest room, I contributed to meals and groceries, and they helped with pickups. But the balance shifted with Stephen's family. When my nephew Ethan arrived, favoritism erupted. My parents transformed their dining room into a nursery for him, while Jack and Emma remained in a small shared bedroom. Calls for childcare help were dismissed with "Stephen needs more support." Christmas magnified the disparity. Jack and Emma received modest gifts, while Ethan was buried under mountains of presents and praise. I created little refuges for movie nights and charts to track progress toward our own home, but the air grew suffocating. By September, the breaking point arrived. Stephen announced a home renovation, and my parents eagerly welcomed him in. Overnight, Jack and Emma were silenced and shoved aside. Emma's clarinet practice was interrupted for Ethan's nap. Jack's art achievements were ignored. My protests were met with accusations of jealousy and ingratitude. Still, I clung to patience. I was saving, planning, and waiting for our new home. But patience wasn't enough. By mid-October, the house felt like a trap. My children's well-being was disregarded. Jack's asthma medication treated as a luxury, Emma's passions dismissed, toys relegated to the basement while Ethan's nursery shone with light and space. Finally, a Tuesday forced my hand. Messages from the kids. Mom, Grandpa, and Uncle Stephen moved our beds. Grandma says we have to sleep in the basement. It's cold and gross with spiders. My stomach twisted. My hands shook as I called, no answer from anyone. My supervisor rearranged shifts so I could leave. The drive home felt endless. When I arrived, Jack and Emma were huddled together on the couch, pale and tear-streaked. My mother and Melissa sat in the kitchen, calm as if nothing had happened. Emma threw herself into my arms. "We don't deserve the good rooms anymore," she whispered. I squared my shoulders. "Pack your bags," I told them. "We'll get the rest later." My parents sputtered. My brother smirked. Melissa shrugged. But I was calm. Clear. "You made it obvious we deserve better." Jack and Emma gathered their things, backpacks slung over shoulders. I kissed them, steadying my voice. Then we walked out. Each step was heavy yet freeing. The weight of years of favoritism, neglect, and silence lifted with every bag loaded into the car. Nancy, my friend from the hospital, greeted us warmly. Her home became our temporary refuge, clean, safe, and filled with love. That night I finally exhaled. "We're finally free," I whispered. And for the first time in years I felt a quiet sense of peace, knowing we were valued and safe. The following week felt surreal. Boxes lined the driveway of our new home, modest but ours. A 3-bedroom house with a small yard. Enough space for Jack and Emma to breathe, to play, to grow without fear or judgment. Every step we took inside, dragging mattresses, unpacking dishes, hanging drawings on bare walls, was a declaration of independence. For the first time, I watched Jack spread his sketchbook across the kitchen table without interruption. Emma practiced her clarinet freely, music filling the air without someone snapping, "Shush, Ethan needs quiet." The walls absorbed our laughter, our chatter, our quiet moments of relief. Yet the challenges of independence quickly appeared. Money was tight. Hospital shifts were long. Every bill, every delivery, every utility setup demanded attention. But unlike before, these challenges were ours to face together on our terms. I didn't need permission to make decisions about my children's lives. I didn't need validation from the very people who had diminished them. The first night in the new house, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, Jack and Emma asleep nearby. The quiet was almost deafening. I let myself breathe for the first time in years. The freedom was intoxicating but also heavy with responsibility. This house wasn't just walls and floors. It was safety, respect, and love, a place where my children could thrive, not just survive. The parents' messages came through, predictable and calculated. My mother texted guilt-laden warnings. "We can help, just don't cut ties." Stephen tried to persuade me subtly. "You'll regret isolating the kids." Melissa's passive-aggressive comments arrived under the guise of concern. I ignored them. I wasn't negotiating my children's dignity. Every day I reinforced boundaries. No unsolicited visits. No manipulative phone calls. No comparing Jack and Emma to Ethan. Slowly the tension melted. I was no longer the timid daughter seeking approval. I was Margaret, their mother, the protector, the decision-maker. The kids began to bloom. Jack's sketches became more elaborate, more confident. Emma's clarinet melodies grew in complexity, her pride reflected in her eyes. I saw what had been stifled for years begin to shine. Their laughter filled rooms that had once echoed only with silence or criticism. Even simple moments became victories. Breakfast without judgment. Homework without interruptions. Bedtime stories without someone reminding them they were less important. I watched as my children rediscovered their own voices, their own worth. Outside of our home, I began establishing routines that cemented our independence. I organized after-school activities, scheduled regular check-ins with their teachers, and invested in small joys, a trip to the park, an art class, a simple pizza night. Each act of normalcy was a statement: we were safe, we were cared for, we were free. Still, the family tried to intrude. Stephen once drove past the house, waving smugly. My parents sent unsolicited, friendly messages about holidays. I replied politely but firmly, never opening the door for manipulation. The lesson had been learned. Proximity does not equal authority. Entitlement does not equal right. Weeks later, I allowed myself a small indulgence. I invited Nancy over for coffee, letting her meet Jack and Emma in our new space. Seeing the children relax, unafraid, I realized the power of environment. Love doesn't come in flashy gifts or grand declarations. It comes in respect, stability, and the quiet consistency of being valued. By mid-November, the house was fully functional. Our routine stabilized. The twins no longer flinched at their grandparents' names, no longer measured their worth against Ethan's every achievement. They began to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. One evening, after a particularly peaceful day, I watched the sunset from the living room window. Jack and Emma were sprawled on the floor, drawing and playing, their chatter weaving into the hum of the refrigerator and the faint creak of the floorboards. I realized, with a strange sense of triumph, that I had rebuilt not just a home, but a life, one where my children's dignity mattered more than anyone else's opinions. And in that realization I felt a deeper truth. Leaving wasn't betrayal. Leaving wasn't weakness. Leaving was love. Love that put my children first, that demanded respect, that refused to compromise for convenience or guilt. I whispered quietly, a promise I intended to keep. No one will ever make you feel small again. Jack looked up from his sketchbook. Mom, can we put our new castle drawing on the wall? Emma chimed in. Yes. And the dragons. I smiled, realizing we weren't just moving boxes or furniture. We were reclaiming joy, reclaiming space, reclaiming life. And nothing from the past could take that away. The weeks after the move felt like reclaiming a life that had been stolen in plain sight. Every morning I watched Jack and Emma wake up in their own beds, sunlight spilling across their faces, no longer hiding in corners or apologizing for existing. For the first time, I could breathe without the weight of parental expectations pressing on my chest. The family tried, of course. Phone calls, passive-aggressive emails, offers of support that reeked of manipulation. But I responded calmly, firmly, and with unwavering clarity. Thank you, but we are settled. Our life is ours. Jack and Emma thrived. Jack's sketches evolved into full illustrations, his imagination unbridled. Emma's clarinet playing blossomed into a confident, expressive performance, her teachers remarking on her improvement. It wasn't just academic or extracurricular success, it was emotional recovery, reclaiming their sense of self, their dignity restored. I took pleasure in the small victories. Grocery shopping without comments about my spending. Bedtime without critiques of parenting. Even a simple trip to the park became an affirmation of autonomy, a silent rebellion against years of favoritism and neglect. My children learned what it meant to feel safe, valued, and heard. One afternoon, I returned from the hospital to find the mailbox full of letters from my parents. Bills, unsolicited advice, and one particularly passive-aggressive note about holidays. I set them aside untouched and told the kids, "These letters are reminders of why we built our own life." Over time, the resentment I had carried began to fade, not because my family had changed, but because I had finally claimed my own space, my own rules, my own power. Jack and Emma no longer flinched at their grandparents' names. They laughed freely. They slept soundly. They played without fear. I allowed myself reflection, remembering the years of quiet suffering, the small humiliations, the constant comparisons. I realized something crucial. Leaving had not been selfish, it had been an act of courage. For my children, for myself, for our future. The move became more than a physical relocation. It was a declaration of self-respect. We established routines, rituals, and boundaries. No unsolicited visits. No intrusions. No guilt trips. Our home was sacred, and I made it clear that respect was non-negotiable. Months later, I watched Jack and Emma play in the backyard, their laughter a melody that replaced the tension and favoritism of the old house. They were building their own memories in a space free from judgment, free from manipulation, free from being less than anyone else. Even when the family attempted to reassert control, through comments, attempts at guilt, or reminders of what we've done for you, I stood firm. The children's well-being came first, always. I reminded them gently but firmly. Our home, our rules, our safety. One evening as I tucked the twins into bed, Emma whispered, "Mom, thank you for this house. I feel happy here." Jack added, "I feel safe, Mom. Really safe." I kissed their foreheads and whispered my own vow. "I will never let anyone make you feel small again." That night I sat alone in the living room, watching our empty rooms hum with the echoes of freedom. No more favoritism. No more unfair comparisons. No more compromises that came at the expense of love and dignity. I had created a sanctuary, one where respect, care, and equality reigned. Margaret Chin, the mother who had endured years of injustice, had emerged not only intact but triumphant. She had walked away from toxicity, reclaimed her children's lives, and built a home where love was genuine, unconditional, and visible in every corner. Sometimes the hardest choices are the most necessary. Leaving wasn't abandonment, it was protection. Leaving wasn't selfish, it was courage. And as I watched Jack and Emma settle into their new beds, I knew this. We were finally home. Truly home. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about courage, resilience, and family boundaries. Comment below what you would have done if faced with this kind of situation. If you're inspired by Margaret's journey, give this video a like, it really helps.